Continuity of operations planning. 3 ways to get ready. A terrible storm or wildfire is headed your way. You must act fast to respond. What should you do? Why wait to actually think about this when it's actually happening? We know you're busy, but you still have the luxury of time now to pre-think solutions before the stress hits. Once you pre-think solutions, you can write them down so everyone knows what they are. That document is called a Continuity of Operations Plan, sometimes called a COOP. Your COOP will give you a quick access manual to how you will operate in the immediate aftermath of a crisis and then into the time period after the crisis when a new reality settles in. Before we go any further, let's be clear. Don't get hung up on the need to produce a formal document. Focus on the purpose, solving problems, and create whatever is right for your organization. We want to talk about 2 ways to problem solve, by disaster and by task. Let's start with the Continuity of Operations Plan by disaster. This plan centers on a specific disaster and what your organization will do if it impacts your organization or the community. It invites you to drill down into the impacts of that disaster and how your organization can respond in the short term and the long term. We like to explain the COOP by disaster by talking about a bottle of olive oil on the top shelf of your kitchen. There it is, sitting there, and maybe an earthquake knocks it off. It crashes to the floor, breaking glass and spilling oil all over the floor. Your immediate response centers on safety and risk management. You want to address injuries and block off the area so no one steps on glass or slips on the oil. After the immediate response, you have time to further stabilize the situation. You can clean up the mess. You can figure out what to make for dinner now that you don't have that bottle of olive oil. Joking aside, nonprofits go through the exact same process. This is where some pre-thinking is helpful, and we give you some prompts in the guide to help you work through this. Your first step is to understand your current business model and program delivery. How many people do you serve? What supplies are needed to serve them? What is your work rate? In other words, how many people do you need on staff to serve how many people? We give an example in the guide on how a food bank thought through these questions. Next, think about a disaster and what assumptions you can make. Will demand increase or decrease? Will staff have access to work or not? Will you have electricity? What routes will be impacted? You can think about these assumptions in 2 categories, moderate and severe. A mild earthquake may be experienced one way, while a full 7.0 magnitude quake may change everything about your situation. Finally, walk through time. What will you do immediately? 24 hours later? 48 hours later? What will your response be in time? If it's hard to answer these questions, pretend you're a storyteller, telling the story of what might happen over that longer period of time. Let me pause here while you think about your continuity of operations planning. Who might be able to lead this effort? When could you work on it? There's a second kind of COOP planning, and that is by task. A continuity of operations plan by task centers on the administrative tasks that you must do to keep your organization running. Specifically, you list key operational tasks like payroll, bill paying, HR functions. It can be very damaging to an organization if suddenly you aren't prepared to meet payroll or you can't pay your bills because you don't have online access. Through this process, you determine the urgency of administrative tasks. There may be tasks that you can stop doing in the short term, and it is helpful to have clarity about that. Finally, through this process, you decide how you will accomplish these administrative tasks in the case of a disaster. We give you a resource to help you. Your mission matters. You want to plan in advance how you will continue to serve your people and operate your organization. Thinking in advance means that you don't have to think as much when disaster strikes.